The man accused of setting Parliament alight earlier this month, Zandile Mafe, now faces an additional charge of terrorism. The other charges include arson, housebreaking, theft and the possession of explosives. The bail hearing of the 49-year-old accused is underway in the Cape Town Magistrate Court. Dozens of firefighters battled to extinguish the fire, which caused millions of rand worth of damage. The National Assembly building was totally destroyed by the blaze. Well, for more on this story, we cross now to my colleague Vanessa Poonah, who's standing by for us in Cape Town. Thanks very much, Vanessa. So what's the latest where you are?
Yes, good morning or good afternoon to you from the Cape Town Magistrates Court outside here. Let me first say that since early this morning, a number of protests have been taking place. First, a group of homeless people, the homeless community members, have come out to say that the police indeed arrested the wrong man, and they're saying that the homeless are often the targets of law enforcement authorities, saying that at this point none of them believe that Mr. Zandile Mafe could have been responsible for the fires that gutted Parliament. At the moment, also behind me, you'll see quite a number of organisations, including the PAC, as well as the Black National Crisis Committee. I think that's the proper name. They were gathering outside Parliament here. There are two police nyalas that are on the scene since earlier. Obviously, the interest very high with the second court appearance of Mr. Mafe. What had transpired in court today is that, of course, senior counsel Advocate Zandile Mafe has come on board to represent Mr. Mafe on a pro bono basis, as well as assisting his attorney, Mr. Luvuyo Godla, who confirmed to us a short while ago that both of them are acting pro bono for Mr. Mafe. Now, when the counsel came to court this morning, the defence seemed quite surprised at a number of things. The first thing is they were intent on bringing a bail application, and that's of course what most of the arguments this morning centred around. The defence wanted to forge ahead with the bail application. You'll remember that when Mr. Mafe was in court last week, Tuesday, the state had then requested the 7-day postponement for further investigation. The state on their end have insisted that this was not a court appearance for a bail application. What has happened since is two things. The first thing is that a new charge has now been brought against Mr. Mafe, and let me read it to you. It is a contravention of Section 5 of Act 33 of 2004, and that is the Protection of Constitutional Democracy Against Terrorist and Related Activities Act. Now, according to the NPA's Eric Ntabazalila, this charge will replace a charge of damage to essential infrastructure. So at this point, as I understand, there are still 5 charges against Mr. Mafe. A short while ago, the court had ordered, and another application brought by the state was that Mr. Mafe be sent for a mental observation at Falkenberg Hospital. This follows after he was observed by a district surgeon earlier on in this week. And of course, I think that was on the 3rd. The court has now ordered that he go for that 30-day observation. One of the challenges that Advocate Mpofu and the legal team for Mr. Mafe said was that, look, we don't even know at what point he will be admitted for that 30-day period. And of course, saying that this could hamper his bail application. When we asked Mr. Mafe's attorney a short while ago on the steps here behind me when that bail application will be brought, he could not tell us exactly when, but that they are planning to speak with their state counterparts, the NPA counterparts, to do so as soon as possible. So for now, Mr. Mafe has been remanded in custody until that 30-day period. But let me tell you what his legal representatives told us in court. Advocate Mpofu saying to us that his client has said that when he was on the streets and hungry and poor, the state would not feed him, and that if he was incarcerated from that point on, he would go on a hunger strike. So essentially, what we are seeing now is that Mr. Mafe would be embarking on a hunger strike because he believes that his incarceration is unfair, and he says that he cannot trade his liberty for food. I'm joined now by his cousin, Mr. Sibongile Matiwani. Mr. Matiwani, you arrived at court shortly after there was an adjournment. As the family of Mr. Zandile Mafe, we've heard that he's now said he's going to embark on a hunger strike. Your family's views on his arrest and also on the proceedings in court today?
Obviously, I haven't spoke to my family yet, and maybe most of the family, they haven't heard what transpired on the court today. So obviously, I'll give them a call and tell them what transpired. Then, obviously, they won't like what Mr. Mafe said. They're just going to go on hunger strike because people, they can't live without food.
Mr. Matiwane, we know that Mr. Mafe, your cousin, will now be sent or is awaiting admission for a 30-day period of observation. According to the NPA, he was seen by a district surgeon and he was observed for having paranoid schizophrenia. I asked you earlier on off camera and you were telling me that as a family you've never experienced Mr. Mafe to have mental illness. Explain to us who he is and why you say that he has no mental illness.
No. Mr. Mafe, he said it's okay inside the court there. He told his lawyers that it's okay. So I believe what he's telling me. So as I know him, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with him.
And your experience growing up with him, you said that you grew up with him. What kind of person is he then?
He's not that person that is aggressive. He always likes his space, he likes his peace. That's him.
So you haven't had a chance to consult with the family as yet, but going forward, there have been quite a number of reports, on social media, etc., about Mr. Mafe's identity and also allegations that he was, I don't know, he could have been acting, in cahoots with certain organizations, etc. Your view going forward on that as a family, where to from here?
I don't want to comment on the rumors because I believe the government knows who's Zandile, and maybe if you have the passport to go to those places they said he went, I believe that the government will have those answers. Because the family, I don't think the family is aware of all those things. We just saw all those things in the media. Yes.
How do you feel today? Your cousin is now been incarcerated, taken back to Paulsmoor prison until he goes for this mental 30-day period. What are your feelings at this point?
Obviously, I won't feel all right to see one of my family being under detained because of those things. But let the law play its course.
Thank you so much for speaking to me, Mr. Matiwane. Of course, the cousin of Mr. Zandile Christmas Mafe, talking to us outside the Cape Town Magistrates Court, where a short while the court had indeed ordered that he return to Paulsmoor prison pending that 30-day period of mental observation at Falkenberg Hospital here in Cape Town.